This is AM Agenda. With me this morning, the Assistant Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, and the Parliamentary Secretary to the Shadow Treasurer, Ed Husic. Gents, I want to play a little bit more of the Prime Minister. He was on Radio 2SM talking about this 5-year budget balance message. Let's hear it.
Measures that we've already managed to get through the Senate, we get back to broad budget balance within about 5 years. Yes, there is a budget repair task still ahead of us, but we, the coalition government, are not going to repair our budget this year at the expense of your family budget.
Continuing with that message that we heard from Josh Frydenberg before the break, Ed Husic, if the government can manage that, it would be, politically more palatable, obviously, wouldn't it? If they're going to have a more, incremental budget come May.
So they're talking about what will happen in 5 budgets' time when they can't even get the last one through and they can't sort it out properly. I mean, I am staggered to see that they would repeat the same mistakes they made in opposition. You will recall Joe Hockey said that within 1 year of office they would get to surplus. He then, before they even got into government, broke that promise and said, no, we're not going to do that. We had been saying for ages that there was a revenue issue and it needed to be dealt with. They said, no, it's a revenue forecasting problem. They have, on every turn, made missteps on the budget, and for them to say that they're going to get to surplus in 5 years' time is farcical. And the only way they do it, Kieran, is to resuscitate all the things that they've ditched now, which, again, is GP tax, higher ed reform, the type of cuts that we've seen that they've walked away from. Those are still in the back pocket, ready to be taken out at a point to hit and hurt.
And I guess the scepticism that's around as to the government's or the Prime Minister's 5-year plan or 5-year forecast is this declining iron ore price. It's gone below the $60 estimate of average prices in the budget to $56. That's left a further hole in the budget that you've got to try and find before you even get anywhere near balance.
Well, Kieran, you're right. There is pressure on the revenue side, and in the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook at the end of last year, we had to write down our revenue projections by $32 billion as a result of the fall in commodities, particularly iron ore, gas, coal and wheat. But at the same time, the economy is continuing to grow. I mean, we saw in 2014 the economy growing much faster than it did under Labor. We're creating 600 new jobs every day, 3 times faster than under Labor. Job advertisements that have been going up for 28 months. And what we've also seen with retail numbers is retail numbers have been going up consecutively for 8 months. So we are seeing some green shoots across the economy. We're also seeing a lower Australian dollar, which is a boost to exports. We're seeing, falling interest rates, a 25 basis point cut, and of course,
so you're optimistic.
More money in the hands of the public through disposable income with the abolition of the carbon tax and the lower petrol price.
That justifies. I mean, we quizzed, Glenn Stevens back in February. I sit on the economics committee.
Sure.
We asked him. Yeah, and I actually asked him, with oil prices falling and the dollar down, you'd think that would be a super boost to the economy. So why would you cut interest rates? And their answer is because when we look at the forecasts, we see things aren't getting any better, that there's not enough oomph in the economy, and that's why they had to cut rates. And there's still a suggestion they'll cut them further. So when we have this rosy picture being painted of the economy, it just defies basically the conventional wisdom about where the economy is going, and it'll be below trend. And ultimately too, the thing that has really sunk growth in the economy is a lack of confidence as a result largely of their inability to get a budget framed properly.
Can I just say, all the independent experts, from the RBA governor himself, who said it's all about the trajectory, and we know where your trajectory was going. The Commission of Audit, which was in the Commission of Audit, which was on the Commission of Audit, the Parliamentary Budget Office, the OECD, the IMF, they're all saying that we need to get spending under control. Now, spending was under control when the books were handed over by Howard and Costello. In fact, we had 10 budget surpluses, and then Wayne Swan goes out to the Parliament and announces the 4 budget surpluses we're going to produce for the Australian people. Well, none of them ever eventuated.
Let's finish off with a couple of issues. Metadata. Sure. Ed Husic, you expressed your concerns to your caucus yesterday about Labor supporting the government on the metadata arrangements. What specifically are you worried about?
Well, I've said for ages, Kieran, that I had to be convinced that this was the best way to go. That's been my consistent position on the issue. I certainly approached it with a a lot more of an open mind, and when you go through the report, it's clear. For law enforcement purposes, very important. I think the case on national security still has to be made further, given the evolving threat on national security. But my concern with metadata is that we're creating these digital fingerprints for the entire nation at a cost that will really slug smaller telcos and drive out competition, because the start-up cost, the government still has not stumped up how much they'll actually pay to help bring this system into place. And I generally worry about, setting up a system that has, in other jurisdictions, been shown to only contribute to convictions by 0.006%. So we're spending millions of dollars collecting all this data on a system in other jurisdictions that people go isn't working or moving away from. But it is what it is. I'm one of the few voices that actually has expressed those concerns, and you just accept in a democracy that where things are headed.
Well, where they're headed isn't far enough, according to the Independent Senator Nick Xenophon, when it comes to the treatment of journalists and the media. He wants a US-style approach where not just a warrant is needed to access a journalist's metadata, but a contestable warrant, essentially, where a journalist and a media company is advised, and then they are able to contest that warrant before a judge. Does that make sense to you, in order to protect the sources and whistleblowers?
Well, I think we've got the balance right now in terms of protecting, journalists, with a warrant now being required before the metadata of a journalist can be accessed. Also, the fact is we've got the Parliamentary Joint Committee to being advised when the metadata of a journalist is being accessed.
So you think it's necessary?
Well, I think we've got...
You think it was necessary?
Well, I think this balance sounds like it's a good one. The Inspector General of Intelligence is now being alerted to the fact that the metadata of a journalist will be sought. And I think, these sort of changes, and as well as the Commonwealth Ombudsman, are good. But can I just say, Kieran, there is an overriding need for these important national security measures. We've seen large numbers of young Australians being radicalised and going across to the Middle East.
We've got to go, unfortunately. We're out of time. We always get tight on time.
Monies,
no, we didn't. But you've got a basketball game as well coming up.
Exactly. We got a star.
They're cleaning up their mess.
Spearsy playing next week.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, Harmony Hoops. We got.
Yeah. Well, I'll be a point guard.
Polly's v Press.
On Tuesday?
Yeah. What's your excuse?
I'll be watching.
Why aren't you playing?
I'll be here talking to our viewers.
So why can't you commentate?
I look forward to it.
Can we do a live cross?
No.
I'll be watching Ed's back.
You've got to give the people what they want, mate.
Well, they've got you, mate. So I look forward to watching you and David Spears playing basketball. And
3-pointers all round.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll finally see if Spears is any good. He talks his game up.
Indeed. A quick break on AIM Agenda. Back in just a moment.